So in the mid 1980s, Apple was already a huge name in tech after the release of the Macintosh computer and the Apple II. But Steve Jobs left the company in 1985, and under new leadership, the company wanted to expand beyond computers. Quote me here, but Nike popped off in the 1980s after being released in 1970s, so that might have something to do with why Apple wanted to go from computers and branch on into fashion. So by making the Apple Collection a full lifestyle and clothing brand, with lineups from everything to sweatshirts, t-shirts, baseball caps, polo shirts, Apple branded accessories, office apparel, and finally kids clothes. So don't quote me on this, but I could be wrong, but Apple likes to make their stuff more expensive. I think this is kind of the same way they were doing this, how Nike had a whole line of clothing back then, and they just gave us something that had more of an Apple acquaintance. That being said, Apple has always been a great, huge tech company, not too much of a fashion company, and that being said, people weren't really rushing down the street to buy an Apple branded polo t-shirt. So just like everything else Apple makes, the price of the clothing were extremely high, and I was never alive in the 80s, but from what is heard, people said that they were really outdated clothing for the years that they were released. So obviously the market wasn't strong enough to convince people to go out to spend their money on Apple related clothing. Unlike Nike or Adidas, who were simply built on fashion back in the 80s, Apple had no background or no credibility to being in the fashion industry. So for the tech fans from Apple, they weren't really looking for the latest sweatpants drop, they were mostly looking for the latest iPhone drops. So still today, Apple does sell limited edition merch, such as hats and also t-shirts, but they really only sell them now at Apple Park's Visitor Center in California. Oh, and of course Apple employees get exclusive merch, like their jackets and hoodies that sometimes tend to leak online. Do you guys think with Apple's sleek modern aesthetics that they could successfully relaunch a fashion line today? Here's a couple fun facts. Some of the old Apple Collection items they sold back in the 1980s are still being sold to this day on eBay for thousands of dollars. And in 2015, Apple released the Normcore. It was an Apple Watch fashion line in collaborations with Hermes the brand. And for the last fun fact, Steve Jobs' iconic black turtleneck was custom made by Easy Miyake. If you don't know who he is, he makes custom technology-driven design clothes that are just amazing. And not only did he make one for Steve, he made over 100.